Thank you so much for tuning in today. You're listening to C Major Before the Show. Thank you. I'm so glad you could make it today. It's Saturday. It's a beautiful day outside. The sun is shining. It's a little cooler than we thought it would be. But here we are. You made it to Saturday, and thank you so much for being with us. I'm here on the piano, so you can probably hear some background sounds. I'm starting at the piano again today because I really wanted to talk with you about chords, chording at the piano, and just sitting down, playing some chords, but also playing along with recorded music. Have you ever thought about doing something like that? That's what we're talking about today. And so we're going to just take it at our own pace today. I know that a lot of people are at home, and so I know you're looking for something to do, and hopefully we can give you some ideas for that. And we'll say a little bit more about that a little bit later, but I am at the piano. And so imagine you have your favorite recording on, or in some cases you may be listening to piano music or jazz or whatever the case may be. I would just challenge you to find a way to chord along. We talked a lot about chords in this podcast, and sometimes it's easier, I find it easier to teach by chords and by ear than to teach someone to read music because, well, like I said, a little bit later we'll say something about that. And I'm thinking about devoting next week's podcast to talking about method because that keeps coming up. It keeps coming up in my mind. It keeps coming up in conversation. So I will say a little bit about that as well. But chords, I really do encourage you to learn chords. Don't think about songs so much, but just learn your chords. Learn your chords. I think it will take you farther than you think you'll go in your music making. So just imagine I'm going to put my microphone away just a little bit further away, so you'll hear some change in the sound here. But imagine you knew how to play a C chord, you know how to play an F chord, you know how to play a G chord, you know how to play some of the minor chords, right? Okay. But I would just, even if I'm playing something like this and I have a student beside me, I might say, see if you can chord along with what I'm playing. So okay, so the first chord you could use would be a C chord, A minor chord, F chord, G chord, and then a C chord. Okay, so that's just one example. I wanted to use something original first before I start talking about what's written out there. But see if you can make out the chords in something like this. So if you heard somebody do this, what sound do you think that would be? And they're playing this in the bass. Okay. So something like that may sound a little too advanced for your ears. So, but again, challenge yourself. See what you can come up with. And one more thing to just get you thinking in the flow of chords. What would you do if you heard something like this? And what would you try to play? So something like that. Now, I'm going to play something within that that's going to really pique your ear because you're going to say, oh, I've heard that. See if you can figure out what this is from. You might say, hey, that sounds like fill in the blank. Well, the chords are A flat, G, A flat, F. So, you know what's so interesting? My students, I love my students. They are so creative and so funny in the way that they think about music. Ha ha, funny. And I love them. I really do. And so they might even think of part of a song as being cool. I remember when I said that to one of my teachers, and he kind of frowned. He said, just learn the whole thing. What are you talking about? But it was in a Chopin piece where I just said, I just want to play this piece just for, I think it was a scherzo or something. And I said, I just want to learn to play this just for that part. And he was like, don't be silly, learn the whole piece. So that was definitely, I would say, a really great music teacher's response. Like, he was such a great teacher. And so I learned a lot from him. But, you know, he really tried to get us to think about the whole and not just parts of a song, that you really have to think of the whole. And then it wasn't until much later where I really started to take music theory seriously enough to really look into what the composer wanted you to do as the performer. So it's interesting though, but getting into the mind of my students, into the minds of my students, I can see why they would hear something in a song and want to learn just that part. But it's more to it than that. Okay, so we're going to be talking about that today. So now I'm going to be changing my location. The pieces that you heard, if you want to know the names of those, I'm going to give you the titles of what I was playing over at the C Major radio show. So it's a little bit of a tease. Now, before I go, I am thinking about giving you some scales to practice as well. So music is not just about chords. And in fact, there's one very famous teacher who frowns when you even talk about teaching chords. So what about the scales? You should learn scales and then the chords. So every teacher has their own method, their own way of wanting to teach you something, and which comes first. The teacher decides. But minor scales. Think about challenging yourself to play minor scales. So you might just go onto your favorite YouTube channel. You might just go on to some music teaching site. There are a lot of those out there. And just see if you can play along to scales. If you just want something to do while you're staying home, I would say scales are a really good way to occupy your time. Okay, let me try that one again. Okay, and I wasn't using a very fast pace either to play those, but that's just two of the melodic minor scales that you can practice. And so there are harmonic scales as well, but I'm going to hold off on those. But just encouraging you to practice, to sit down and play. And I took that really slowly. I took that at a really much slower pace than I normally would have. But I just learned over the years to be really careful, because if I just do something super fast, guess what happens? My students think they can do that same thing. Or either they'll get a sad face and they'll go, I'll never be able to do that. So I have to be really, really careful. I want you to stay encouraged and not think just because I do something fast, if I do that, I don't expect you to do it at that pace. I'm just demonstrating to you where this is going. So please, please, please take it at your own pace, and just know that music is going to come. If you have any real sense of practice and application and the will to really do it, and not just expect everything to come so fast all the time in your music making, then you're going to do well. I mean, it's not about how fast you can play at once, you know. It's about building yourself to that. Either you can play, I agree with this professor that said, either you can play fast or you can't play fast. But there's a way to practice so that your agility improves. That word agility, agility, so that your agility improves and your flexibility in your fingers and just thinking along those lines. The same thing as if you were to exercise your body and you want to improve your flexibility, your ability to really move in a certain way. I think it's along those same lines. So anyway, we're going to change our location. Thank you again for joining us. And we know that we are in a time in our history where everything is different. I used to say everything is everything. I don't think we can say that right now. Everything is different. And so the word that keeps coming up among friends, among parents, among students, among colleagues, the word that keeps coming up is normal. Everybody's wondering when we're going to get back to normal. So I would say to you, just have fun. But I think now is a time to really say, don't worry. So as much as you really want to have fun, I would say, don't worry. Because once you start to worry, that's going to get in the way of the fun. So here we are, back over here by my recorded music. You may hear me stop a few times today to get maybe a sip of water, and that's going to be it, and then we'll head over to the C Major radio show. But thank you so much for being here again today. You are listening to C Major Before the Show. You're here with C Major Porter on C Major Before the Show. Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon. It's Saturday. It is March 21st, and we're just here trying to be with you and spend some time with you and figuring it all out. What can I say? You just heard Weathering the Storm by C Major, And I just wanted to say a little bit about that song. I wrote that song when I was going through a real storm in my life. And I can't even tell you what that felt like, except that I remember exactly what it felt like. But how much to say about that feeling is what I'm hesitating on right now. But I just recall not being able to sleep, the worry, the anxiety that I was feeling in the moment that I sat down to the piano and it just started to write. And that was the song that came out. And that was the song that I started to play for my friends. I'd never written a song like that before. And after that, I started playing it for friends and family. And then they said, we want to hear that again. And so that's when I decided to call myself C major, because the first song that I wrote that anybody ever paid attention to happened to be written in the key of C. And that song was Weathering the Storm. So my hope is the same for you, that you'll be able to find a way to just sit down and use music to calm your fears and to make yourself feel better in a moment where you're just feeling really low and really bad about your life. And I can tell you, at the end of writing that song, I felt much better. I really did. So stay encouraged. We are definitely in times where people are starting to worry, to have panic attacks, and to have anxiety more than they probably had in a long time. And if you could just find a way to stay calm and just think about good things, think about the positive things that can go right in your life, and seek professional help when you need to seek professional help, and use music if you can to kind of help yourself. So whether or not it's listening to music, sometimes I used to just listen to recorded music that I enjoyed, and it would just make me feel better. It would make me really reflect on just life itself. And I did that a couple of days ago. I think I was listening to the music of Marvin Gaye, and then before that I was listening to Al Green, and just really paying attention to their expression and wondering why listening to their music made me feel so it's better. It's better than saying the word good. It just made you feel so lifted. I think that's another way to say it. It just made you feel so lifted, like it lifted your mood. But what I'm saying to you, in the grand scheme of learning to play the piano, you can use music to lift your mood as well. I really believe that. So before we go today, I will be saying a little bit more about the music making and wellness aspects of music making. But today's topic is really about chording along to recorded music. I once had a musician friend who would always brag that he had played with James Brown, Kool and the Gang, George Clinton and George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic. I almost said Parliament or something. But anyway, he claimed to have played with all these people, and then he was a crack up laughing. And then he would say, when you turn on the radio, you have an opportunity to really play along with these famous people. And I really got his point. Just listen to the recording and follow along. So don't think about the fact that they probably had to spend a lot of time perfecting that recording in order to put it out on their labels. But just think about the fact that you can get something from it. They can become your teachers just from listening to the recording. And so he used to listen to other famous musicians and bands, and he would, again, just say the same thing. So he loved to say that. Then he shared that he had taught himself to play just by turning on the radio, taking out his bass guitar and jamming along to the music. He had, in fact, learned songs in this way. This was his way of practicing and becoming better. He'd say, I played with the best. He also liked to say that every performance is just another rehearsal. That way he wouldn't feel as nervous on stage. Yes, he made it to the stage as a performer and brought his family with him by starting his own group. There is no doubt in my mind that he made the best music he could make. You're listening to C Major Before the Show. I'm your host, C Major Porter. Thank you so much for tuning in. This Saturday afternoon, I was just telling you a story about my friend, and he is sadly no longer with us. And so what you just heard was a song called End of the World, which was also written. It was basically written about a time I was going through my life, and it was written to reflect on a friendship that had been lost, also in a sad way. And the person is no longer with us. But I wrote that song in response to how I was feeling. It felt like my world had basically ended because I really relied on this person a lot for for conversation, really. And this was a young person. So, who wanted to be a musician, but that just wasn't his call. But anyway, when I think about the fun times that he tried to show me his musical ability, I would laugh. But, again, you can use music to address how you're feeling and kind of lift your mood and find a way to get through it all. Anyway, moving on. Bach's birthday is today. Let's give an applause for that. If you are into the music of Bach, I don't know. I feel a little funny sometimes about bringing up certain composers because I was just watching a video where a very famous musician was talking about whether or not they should like the music of certain composers just based on, how they were raised and so forth. But if you just think of the music that the composer gave to the world, and then just think about that, I think that you can really start to think what the benefit would be if you were learning to play the piano. And Bach gave us a lot of music. He's 335 years old today. He was born in 1685, died in 1750. And so I was listening this morning to New York radio, and they were playing music by one of my favorite pianists of all time, Glenn Gould. And so if you just listen to the partita in 1 and B flat, you can really appreciate Bach's music and also the playing of Mr. Gould as well, because there was nobody like him. And I think he took a lot of care and time to record music that was the best music he could make, which was just remarkable. Also interesting that came to my attention this week too was that Heinrich Schütz, which we learned about in undergrad, was a superstar until Bach came along. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to look this up. I don't know if my concise dictionary of music is going to say that. If you look at Schutz's biography, is it going to say a superstar until Bach came along? Let's see what we find, though. I just recall that we had to analyze some of his music in class and be able to recognize it when we heard it. Okay, so I'm going to lower my music here for a minute. So Heinrich Schütz, it appears that he was born, he was born like 100 years before Bach. I did not really put that together. And then died in 1672. So Bach came along in 1685. We're going to look at his dates in a moment. So they would not have known each other. But he was a court organist. He was based in Germany, and then it looks like Dresden. And then he would visit Italy. He composed operas. He read all these different things in Latin and German, writing all these different polychoral settings, music in polychoral settings. And he wrote a Christmas oratory. So, he wrote like a lot of big music, and also known for Italian madrigals. Okay. So, he seemed like he was a superstar in his own right. Now, let's look at Bach's dates, and let's find him in the same book. Okay, so here you go. Bach, born in 1685. They even give the months. I didn't realize he was born in March. But now I know. March 21st, there it says. He was born in Eisenach. And then he died in Leipzig. And so I think I told you I had a chance to see Bach's organ in Leipzig. Anyway, he served as organist, and his biography is so much longer than Schutz's, but so interesting, right? They didn't even know each other, but here he comes along, and he was able to pick up the torch and run with it. So much work, though, that he did. If you have a chance, just look at his history. You don't need a music dictionary to do that. You would just find it and just look it up on your own. And so, anyway, shout out to anyone who likes the music of Bach. I was able to share some music history with my students this week, and it was really fun to do that. But chords, we're talking about chords. So today's topic, if you're just tuning in, chording along to recorded music. How are you going to do that? We're encouraging you to just sit down as you are staying at home and just turn on the music and see what kind of music you can make along with the music. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. Shout out. Now, normally I would give shout outs to just my students, but I'm going to give shout outs to my students, to colleagues that are staying home. Shout outs to, and I've never done this before, but shout outs to all of my friends on Facebook. So shout out to Facebook. It's Saturday, y'all. I like to say that. And so, shout out to Facebook. I like to say when I go onto Facebook, sometimes I just like to say, good morning, Facebook. I hope you're doing well, Facebook. Things like that, because it's Facebook. Now, I don't do that on Twitter, but I'm going to give a shout out to all of my followers on Twitter. So shout out to you. I hope you're doing well. I really do. With the staying home that we're doing, it's so funny because Twitter and Facebook are two totally different vibes on the internet. So I tend to be on both, and I really enjoy being on social media just to see the difference in the response. So Facebook to me feels like it's more personal, it's more reactionary. You get a lot more reactions from the heart, I think, on Facebook, whereas Twitter to me feels a little bit more strong, a little bit more political. And so one of my Facebook friends this week must have not been on Twitter a whole lot, and then he went over there and then he just said to us, it's like, Twitter is lit. And I just had to laugh because I knew exactly what he was talking about. Like, you get so many different responses to Twitter, and you can see what's trending on Twitter, especially when it comes to what happened in politics or who said what and who did what. So Facebook is a little bit more reactionary, so they're not really responding to who's trending. They're just responding to something that was posted, and they're just reacting all over the place. And it seems like more people really know each other, and it's more personal on Facebook. Shout out to Instagram. I do have some Instagram followers, and again, it feels more like Facebook. It feels warm. So shout out to my Instagram followers. It's just nice to see you guys hanging in there through all of our trying times, all the things that we are going through. And so other places you can find me on social media, you can find me on Music Glue, you can find me on WordPress. And I hope I'm not coming off as somebody that really just wants to talk about myself all the time. I really want to connect with you online. So whether I know you or whether you are looking to get into music making, the podcast started because I wanted to help my students. So shout out to Spreaker. So prior to Spreaker, we were on Blog Talk Radio, which is also part of the Voxnest media company. And so we're really excited about the things that are happening. And I'm happy to see so many musicians that are now getting into podcasting. And I think it's an exciting time. If you have a voice, if you have something to say. And so we had a chance to say we were inspired by my students to be on a podcast in the first place. And so I would say that inspiration still continues because you guys are the reason that I'm trying to share music making online, because you have so many different ways of making music yourself and so many different motivations for doing so. So the Facebook topics that I responded to this week, I wanted to take a moment to share those with you. If you can just bear with me a moment. And you are listening to C Major Before the Show. I'm your host, C Major Porter. Glad you could be with us on this Saturday afternoon. Don't forget to join us a little bit later over at the C Major Radio Show. That's where we get to write things down and really dig a little bit deeper into some of the music making topics that we discuss over here. So I'm hoping to delve a little bit deeper actually in the coming week. So since we have the time to do it, we're staying home. I think I may try to spend a little bit more time explaining things, breaking things down, and we'll figure that out as we go. So just look for that. So if you see the activity pick up a little bit in our podcasting, it's because we really are thinking, okay, what are some other ways we can share with you and really help you get through the questions that you have about music making. So if it's about chords, if it's about something else, that's what we're focusing on. Now, over on Facebook, on our Facebook page, over on C Major Before the Show, so you'll see that we changed our photo a little bit. I updated the photo so it just has just the piano. You don't see the C Major logo, and then has the Wimbledon decoration at the bottom, the frame. And I don't know if I wanted it to be Wimbledon. I think I was looking for something with U.S. Open, but Wimbledon comes before U.S. Opens. But you guys know I'm a big fan of tennis, so that's going to be there for about a week. And then we posted our logo again, thanks to Spreaker, that gave us the platform and also gave us the template for this. So it just has CBTS, but the C is colored, the S is slightly tilted, and so we're using that as our logo for the show. And then you'll see that we're on live, C Major Before the Show, chording along, playing to recorded music. And there's the Spreaker star right there. And so below that is where I'm trying to go, because I posted some links to something and I just didn't want to let the show go without saying something about that. Okay, so free piano and guitar cheat sheets. Look at that. And so if you find that useful, click on that link and just know that you can get those items for free at this time. Now, music connects us. We were going to talk about that hashtag because, as you know, a lot of musicians are out of work at this time. So our thoughts, our prayers go out to those of you who are trying to find your way in the world right now. And so as we all stay home together, we just have to really keep the faith and really think that things are going to be okay. But imagine you're part of the Metropolitan Opera and you're just told to just go home and we'll call you back when we need you. So hashtag Music Connects Us is from an article that I read about that. Now, Declaration on Equity in Music for City Students. So this comes from an article that was written about the Yale School of Music. And so if you care to look at that, click on that. There are some concerns among the teaching artists and the teachers that I know about what it means to really reach into every neighborhood and make music available. So they have that on their minds. And then I said, see you all soon on the podcast. Stay safe and healthy. And then earlier in the week, there was something posted in Billboard. And you have to be careful how you post things in Billboard because, you know, they don't want you to post something that was private and now is public. You have to be careful of that. But there was an announcement that led to the Music Cares page. I've heard about Music Cares a lot, and I think it's meant for musicians that really go through deep issues. But we're talking about the recording industry. So musicians who have 5 or 6 professional albums, I believe is what the requirement is before you can even get the funding that Music Cares is offering. So it's really for the music industry, like the professional music industry, where you're not an indie artist, but you're somebody that the industry recognizes as giving a lot of music recordings and professional content. Now, I really like the song that this person gave, who's also a music teacher. And he was on American Idol, and he sang one of my favorite songs by Stevie Nicks, which I'm an 80s person, so late 70s, 80s person. And a lot of that music really resonates with me. So if you care to look at that link, this is all at our C Major Before the Show, which is a public page on Facebook. And then there was something called it was an article that's talking about, and we were talking about this last week, talking about whether or not you should play the piano with long nails or not. So imagine, because of the coronavirus, that a lot of people are canceling their hair appointments, their nail appointments. And so in the interest of social distancing, they were just saying, hum a tune while you're washing your hands, and also just be careful of getting your nails done. But I think now we're in a time where non-essential businesses are being closed anyway. We're going to say a little bit more about that as well. Coffee culture. So sad to see that this coffee shop is closed down. It's in New York. And you guys know I'm really into coffee culture. And then I gave a shout out to you about what we're going to be talking about. So chording along to recorded music, and here we are. So music fun. And so I wanted to make sure I said something about that. And then if you saw our post over at WordPress, music making and love. So I posted a love poem with some words that was from a very famous poet and professor on our WordPress site at cmajorporter.com, which is where we keep C Major's Classroom going over there. And so how would you express yourself? Our theme over here is Heartbreak and Wonder. And it really is just saying, be inspired, write a song that will lift your mood so that you're no longer heartbroken at the end of the song or the music making, and really pull yourself up that way. And so it's not a medical prescription or anything like that. It's just saying, in an anecdotal way of speaking, this helped me. But I don't know if there's science to support that. And by the way, you may have heard me say this before, but science is like a second love of mine. So there's music, there's science, there's sports. It's really music, sports, and then science. It really was sports, along with music, and then science. So, but I had to go with the one that was the strongest, and it turned out to be music. And then exactly a week ago, on March 14th, we mentioned this link. Now, this link seems to have been exhausted by now. It's where everybody was really trying to post something to add to the list for freelance artists. So by now, it's probably been updated so much that they've probably just taken it down. But I don't know. I'm not going to be looking at that with you guys today. But it's there. Okay. Thank you very much. And so, on Facebook, on my personal page, which is private, I have some things that I post. And I love that Facebook gives you these memories. Oh, we hope you enjoy looking back on your memories on Facebook. From the most recent memories to those long ago, we thought you might have been interested in seeing what happened on this day, however many years ago, and things like that. I had to stop doing that because sometimes people just feel weird that they don't have anything to post. And so I said, you know what, let me just lay off of that for a moment, because not everybody is interested in looking back or looking back with you. You just have to be so careful, I think, on social media. nowadays, but I'm grateful for social media. So shout out again to all of my social media friends, to everybody who's online trying to make something happen with music. So shout out and cheers to you. Thank you so much. Now, I do want to address a couple more things before we go over to the C Major radio show. It's about 4:30 in the afternoon. We're here in the greater New York area, and you are listening to C Major Before the Show. I'm your host, C Major Porter. And so, I don't know, I was feeling some kind of way about this, where they were talking about what the essential services and jobs are. And I was thinking, I think I'm a little hurt. Music is not essential. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about that. But this is serious. It's a serious time that we're in. And not everybody really knows how to respond, what to do. They don't know if they're going to worry or not worry. You just really don't know. You have to take it hour by hour, minute by minute, day by day. But there are apparently some categories when it comes to business. Makes me think about, okay, what if I want to start a business one day? Should I start a business that is essential? Or should I stick with the non-essential business? If I become an entrepreneur in a big way, and I really hope to, I'm going to speak that into the universe. Dear universe, I want to be an entrepreneur in a big way and help change lives and make music. And so, what is considered an essential job or service? So you may find several articles about this across the internet. And I just happened to take a look at the one that was in the Huffington Post. So they made a little bit of a short list. Now, what everybody's reacting to, what everybody's really surprised about, I know I'm surprised about, I didn't know liquor was essential. I have to laugh about that. I really want to know about that. So, if you're an entrepreneur, should you own a liquor store? I don't know. Why are liquor stores considered essential? That's so interesting, right? Gas stations, auto supply stores, auto repair shops. That was good to know. Or should I just own an auto repair shop? Should I do that? Pharmacies. That's true. Pharmacies are still open. They still don't have toilet paper, though. Yeah, I was at a couple of pharmacies yesterday, and I was like, why you guys don't have toilet paper? I don't know. But I have some good news to report. I found toilet paper today. Yes. Yes. Excited about that. And guess where I found it? Guess where I found it? In a grocery store. Stop the music. In a grocery store. In a grocery store, y'all, I found toilet paper. And it wasn't just any old grocery store either. So if you want to know, inbox me, direct message me, and say, hey, where did you get your toilet paper? But I love this other article now. I posted this on my private page because there was a police department that was freaking out. Well, I shouldn't say that. The people that were calling the police department were the ones that were freaking out, calling 911 because they were out of toilet paper. And so they, you have to laugh about that. They posted a list of ways that you can make it without toilet paper and some of the alternatives that are out there. But again, I was really, really personally glad to see one of my favorite grocery stores of all time had toilet paper. Now, it looks like they were dealing with a different supplier, but we didn't care. Just to see that was just so refreshing, because I've gone at least the last week to 2 weeks without seeing toilet paper on the shelves, and trying to hang on to my squares, have to laugh at that. Now, I'm excited to see this farmers markets. So our farmers market over in the neighborhood where I live is shut down until June, I believe, and they run from June to October. It's a pity they couldn't open up now, because I would love to go to them now. Food banks, convenience stores, you see that. I think I even saw like a 7-Eleven that was shut down, though, for various reasons that we all know at this time. Restaurants, but only for delivery, takeout, and drive-through. So we were talking about that too. That's so interesting. My coffee culture friends are really upset right now because they can't just do something special for themselves by going out for a cup of coffee, which that's what it feels like. I've seen these comments from baristas online, and there's a very special group for that. And I've shouted them out in the past, but they've changed, they've evolved. So I'm not going to shout them out again right now. But I do have coffee culture friends that talk about, wanting to see people learn how to make great coffee at home. But I think it's a luxury. It feels like a luxury if you can go out for coffee. It feels like you're doing something special for yourself, even if it's just having somebody pour a drip cup of coffee, freshly brewed coffee for you. Hardware stores and plumbers, contractors and other tradesmen, appliance repair personnel, exterminators and other service providers, landscape and pool care businesses, residential landscape and pool care. So imagine you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to start your own business. I think you would look at a list like this and just go, hey, I want to be one of those, because they'll never close no matter what. But then the other side, the flip side of that, is if you are non-essential, in the case of music, in the case of the arts, then you would just have to plan. So I was really happy to hear one of my colleagues say that to us. And they happen to be in the business side of things as well as the art side of things, but they just said, you really do have to think how you will plan ahead. So it's almost like you harvest what it is that you can make, and then when the harvest is over, it's over, and hopefully you harvested well, I think was the message. So something to think about. Banks and related financial institutions, including insurance and accounting services. Now, that's a little testy on this list, because we've heard that some of the banks in the area have closed. And so, of course, they're available online, but you cannot walk into a bank right now, I don't think. Phone and computer sellers, yes, I've seen that. They're closed, to some degree, but at the same time, open in a different way. Laundromats, dry cleaners, laundry service providers. Now, they are considered essential, but an essential service, but I think some of them might have closed in our area. Hospitals can never close. We know that, no matter what. Imagine that you had a drive-through hospital. But I've heard that there are some, for lack of a better way of saying it, temporary hospitals being put up in the area as well. So I know that's under. I'm not going to read this whole list. It's a big list. But again, think about where you would fit as a musician within the essential businesses. That's what I would say. I was thinking to myself, wow, music is a part of some of these essential businesses, whether it's recorded music or something else. And so I just wonder how music making would fit within the essential business provider. Something to think about. So the next thing that came to mind was non-essential versus essential in music making. So when it comes to music making and wellness, I think over the years that the music education field has tried to send a message that music is essential. And so we can see from the way it's being treated that music is still being treated and the arts is still being treated as something that needs to close up and go away until the problem is over and then bring it back again. Or it's being treated in a way that can be done remotely. So I really hope that takes off. I hope that a lot more music making will take place online and that we could see that. So good luck, everybody, with that. But I wanted to say a little bit more about music making and wellness because it's connected to science. And one of the things that I was talking about in this article when I did this interview, it was just saying, the wellness benefits of music making are a compelling message to active adults. Research has shown that group keyboard classes can be just a ticket to help adults keep well. And this was at the turn of the century, the 21st century. So we talked about technology. Technology can make music easy to play for many, many people. It can be enjoyable. It can add to the quality of life and life enhancement. So I think in that way you would think of it as essential. Let me read a little bit further. Technology can make music making enjoyable, and it can add to quality of life and life enhancement. It also allows people with limited capacity, for example, to make satisfying music. So if you're thinking about older adults, for instance, with arthritis who are playing, for example, I saw something like that on Facebook the other day. A very well-known musician was sitting down playing the piano. You can see that his hands were a little bit arthritic, but he was still making satisfying music. And so there were a couple of musicians I saw online, by the way. So at the time of this interview, the person was saying how older people with arthritis were playing, for example, one-fingered chords, like on a keyboard in the left hand, one-fingered melodies in the right, and you can play extremely satisfying music. So in the interest of playing recreational music making, that's what they were saying. But the challenge for this week still remains, find a way to chord along to recorded music. How would you do that? But here again, the point is you can play extremely satisfying music. Then when that happens, you can enjoy all the benefits of stress reduction and anxiety and tension. Boy, do we need this now today. So you can't just run out and just buy a keyboard right now because, again, music and arts has been shut down. And so it's considered non-essential. And so if you don't already have a keyboard at home, you may not be able to enjoy all the benefits of stress reduction and anxiety and tension. But I would say go onto your computer, your laptop. Find a way to make music with whatever music programming you have there. I see a lot of music software programs being offered right now at a lower price. Go online, see what you can make. Use technology. Now is the time to use technology to make the best music you can make. Technology used in those ways with age-appropriate music will hopefully also be taught in classes where you can have the social benefits. Those are the kinds of things that allow music to really do the healing and the wellness that we are talking about. So arthritis is just one example of what I pointed out a couple of seconds ago, but There are other kinds of things that we can think of as well, but the use of technology for people who may not be able to make music the way others can make it can be really marvelous, and that's what we were starting to explore at the beginning of the 21st century. Something to think about. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm really looking forward to seeing you over at the C Major Radio Show so I can tell you which scales I was playing today, if you haven't figured it out already, and which chords I was playing and where I was playing it from, and spell that out for you so you can write it on your staff. Writing down music is hard, isn't it? Or is it easy? I don't know. I think for non-musicians it may feel a little bit hard. And so for that reason, I'm going to be talking about method. Again, this whole non-essential versus essential thing has really caught my attention, because now I can think, okay, I really need to talk about this in the context of music making, because I feel like sometimes my students think just because I can do it super fast, they can do it super fast without going through the steps first. Or learning a song is better than learning method, things like that. Not to be too preachy about it, but to really say, you know what? We can talk about this and we can still be friends at the end of the day, and you can agree with me or not agree with me, but no matter what, I want you to take care of yourself, stay home, be safe. Next week, we'll talk about piano method. We'll talk about essential things for playing piano by rote. Let's say you're one of those musicians who may not want to play by reading music. Fine. We'll find a way for you to do that and inspire you with the history of that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to share a little bit of that history over at the C Major Radio Show in a few minutes. So as soon as we leave here, we're going over there to talk to you further. So feel free to join us over there on the same platform. We're on Spreaker, exclusively on Spreaker podcasting. And then you can find our podcast wherever you get your podcast, because we have a way of being heard as well. Piano by rote and by note. We'll be talking about that on next week's episode. So keep listening to us. We'll try to reach out to you during the week. We've been a little bit quiet, but we're changing our ways, and we'll try to reach out to you a little bit more, since we know where you are. You're at home for the most part. But thank you so much for tuning in. It's been great to be with you here on today's podcast. Again, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time right here on C Major Before the Show.